Welcome back to the vlog. PokerBEASTs. Today is a very exciting episode. $300 buy-in. We're going to get right to the action. Pocket 10s on the button. The cutoff decides he's going to open up the action to $10. In the past here, I would just make the call, but with my position, the strength of my hand, and wanting to get this heads up, get the blinds out of the pot, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to get $30 throwing into the 3-bet. The blinds fold out of the way. It gets back to the cutoff, the original pre-flop aggressor. He decides he's going to make the call. He's going to come along. We're going heads up to the flop, $64 in the pot, and the dealer puts out 6 Jack 6. It's a relatively dry, uncoordinated board. It's a great board for me to continue betting on. I don't like the jack, but when my opponent checks to me, I'm going to bet $20. It's going to be a 1/3 pot size bet. I think a small bet will do here in a lot of situations, but the cutoff decides he hasn't had enough. He's going to come along for the ride. 104 in the pot, and we're headed to the turn. It's the 7 of spades. When my opponent checks to me, I decide I'm going to slow down a bit here. I don't mind the check back at all. It's a pot control measure. I don't want to inflate this pot too much with my pocket 10s, but I'm willing to call down, willing to let him take a stab on the river, and hopefully he bluffs into it. Hopefully he's not value betting me. The river comes out. It's very connected. The 8 of spades. It brings in the backdoor flush draw and makes a lot of straights. My opponent bets out into me $50. It's going as I planned. There's nothing else for me to do here except for make the call. Of course, I'm only really concerned about the jack. The bet isn't big enough to where it really challenged me, but he flips up ace-10 offsuit. He whiffed, he went for it, and he didn't get there. I'm scooping the first pot of the night and comfortably sitting with a stack of $404 right out of the gate. We get into our first fold monologue. This episode is extremely special to me, and I want to blow it into the stratosphere. There's only one way that can happen, and it's with your help. Please drop a like on this video. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Let's get back to the action. 8-4 offsuit. I'm in the big blind. The under the gun, middle position, hijack, and cutoff have all called. The small blind folds, and I decided to just check, of course. We're headed 5 ways to the flop, $16 in the pot, and the dealer puts out 7, 6, 10. It's all diamonds, and I have the 8 of diamonds. The 9 of diamonds would give me the straight flush. I also have a double gutter. This is not a bad hand. I check it. The under the gun player decides he's going to bet 10. The middle position player wants to see the turn. He makes the call. It folds around to me, and I make the call as well. We're headed 3 ways to the turn, $46 in the pot, and the dealer puts out the 5 of heart. My gut shot gets there. I have spiked a nice card on the turn, but I still have to be wary because there are 3 diamonds out there. Someone could have a better straight. This is not a hand I want to go wild with. The middle position player does want to go wild, though. He bets $65. I'm glad that money's being put in the pot, but I'm also nervous. I have a great hand, but it's not that great. I do have one player behind me. Who knows what he has? There's no way I'm getting away from this. Although I do want to tread very cautiously, I decide on just making the call. Surprisingly enough, the under the gun player who led out on the flop checked the turn. He decides he wants to play as well. He's coming to the river. He makes the call. 241 in the pot. We're headed 3 ways to the river. I'm well aware I could be in last place. The dealer puts out the 7 of spades on the river. Now boats, now full houses are in plays as well as flushes. Not good. Hopefully this river is a lazy river. I check it to the under the gun player. He checks, and so does the middle position player. We're going to showdown. Thank goodness. The middle position player had ace of diamonds, 6 of spades, bottom pair with a nut flush draw, and the middle position player had 6 of hearts, 5 of clubs. He turned 2 pair. Luckily, the big blind special, my straight held, and I'm scooping the pot. I don't have to wait very long until I pick up my next hand. Ace queen offsuit. I'm in the low jack, 566 in my stack. It folds around to me, so I'm going to open the action. Let's make it $13. The hijack decides he's going to call. The button wants to come along as well. $43 in the pot. We're going 3 ways to the flop, and the dealer puts out 10 jack 4. I do have a gut shot, and these hands where you have a gut shot to the nut straight, they're very complicated to play, very important to know how to play them. I'm not very good at it. I decide to check. The hijack checks, and the button decides to grab 5 red chips, throw them into the middle of the pot. It's a $25 bet. I think with the strength of my hand, having 2 overs and a gut shot to the nuts, I could probably put in a raise here. I decided on making the call. The hijack likes what he sees. He makes the call. We're headed 3 ways to the turn, and the dealer puts out the 8 of diamonds. I'm in kind of a tough position here. I have terrible position. I don't hold a diamond in my hand. I still think the best thing for me to do is check, and so I do. The hijack checks, and now the button's grabbing more chips. He sticks with the same $25 bet. It's a very small bet, and once again, I think I should be applying aggression here, or folding, or maybe even calling. I don't think there's anything too wrong with any of these answers. I'm really not sure what I'm going to be doing in this position. I haven't figured it out yet. I grab a bunch of chips thinking that I should go for the raise, and then I talk myself out of it. I just put in $25. And the hijack once again decides he's going to come along. We're headed to the river. It's the 10 of hearts. This is when I look at the board. I kind of realize, what the heck am I doing in this hand? Just tagging along, just throwing chips in the pot, not really positioning myself in any way to win it. I was sticking around for a king, maybe an ace or a queen. I could have definitely played this hand better. I check to the hijack, who decides he's going to rip it in this time, $100. The big blind looks like he's upset that he missed. Probably has the ace of diamonds over there. He folds, and of course, I'm going to throw my hand away. Wildly enough, my opponent shows pocket tens. He rivered quads. What a massive hand for him. Too bad no one had anything worth gambling with. The next hand I pick up is king 10 of spades. I'm in the big blind, 503 in my stack. The under the gun player is limp. The middle position player bumps it up to $6. The low jack decides he's going to come along. The button makes the call. The small blind throws a $5 chip in. With $30 in the pot, I'm going to make the squeeze $25. It's a very small bet. I probably could have gone larger. This seems like it's just inviting everyone to get in on the action, which is exactly what happens. The under the gun player makes the call, the button makes the call, and the small blind makes the call. We're headed 4 ways to the flop, $112 in the pot, and the dealer puts out 5 jack 3, 2 clubs, just another complete whiff. The small blind checks. I decide I'm going to check. It checks all the way around. We're going to the turn. No one wants to put in a bet, and the dealer puts out the 2 of hearts. This time the small blind is going to lead out. He bets out $25. Looking back, I'm doing something that doesn't make sense at all. Since I am in the big blind, I kind of think that this hits my range, except for I have to remember that I'm the one that bumped it up pre-flop, that put in the 3-bet, that raised the action. And so I decide I'm going to make it $80. I'm going for the raise. This was not a good plan from the start, but it becomes an even worse plan when the button just decides to rip it all in for $199. The small blind doesn't want any of it. He gets out of the way, and of course, I have to fold. I love to bluff. Choosing when to bluff is very important. I'm honing in on this skill. You definitely don't want to be bluffing into a lot of people. You also want to be choosing bluffs with equity. Even if it's a 4-outer, you want to be choosing a hand that you can spike the nuts on. Even if it's a 4-outer, that's going to make your bluffs a lot more profitable. Oh my goodness. Pocket aces, let's go. I'm on the edge of my seat. I love getting aces. The middle position player limps. I'm going to bump it up, $13. Don't want to give any tells away that I have a very strong hand. Some people like to raise more with their better hands. They think they want to protect them. Really, you want to be raising the same amount with your entire range in order to disguise your holdings. There's only one player that wants to come along. It's the middle position player that limped. $30 in the pot, heads up, headed to the flop, and the dealer puts out 10 jack deuce. It's a slightly connected board. I don't have too much to be worried about. It checks to me. I bet $15, and my opponent makes the call. We're headed to the turn. It's the 8 of clubs. The action's on my opponent. He decides he's going to continue checking. He sends the action over to me. The board is not that draw heavy. I want to keep him in even with his 10x holdings, so I decide on a small $25 bet. I could be a little concerned that maybe he has a pocket pair that tripped up. Maybe he does miraculously for him have the 9-7 or 9-queen. I'm hoping that he just calls. I'm not looking for a raise, but he does just call. 5 red chips. We're headed to the river. It's the 6 of spades. An acceptable card to see. My opponent checks action over to me once again, and now I'm convinced that I have the best hand. I want to size up a little bit. I want to be able to get one more street of value out of him. I'm not sure if 100 would be too much since my sizing on previous streets have been so little. 50 seems a little too low, so I decided to go with $70. I've kind of organized my chips. I do that when I get bored. I think it looks beautiful. What do you think? Should I continue to do it for the aesthetics of the vlog? Sped it up, but this value bet seems to have gotten my opponent to think. He stacked out the $70 in chips. All there's left to do is call. He grabs them and throws them into the pot. I flip up my aces, and he puts his cards into the muck. My aces hold. In the famous words of Ice Cube, today was a good day, but it only gets better. I scoop in the pot. And the very next hand, before I can even stack my chips, I get ace jack of spades. It's absolutely beautiful. I've opened the action to $13. The hijack makes the call. It folds around to the big blind. He decides he's going to come along. He throws in 2 reds, $13 total for each of us, bringing the pot to $40. We're headed to the flop 3 ways, and the dealer puts out king, queen, 10. What is this? This is a flop that you love to see. I flopped the nut straight. There are 2 hearts on board, but let's see if we can't squeeze some money out of these players. The big blind bets out $20. I could elect to pounce here. I could go for a raise. I decide I'm just going to make the call. I'm going to risk it for the biscuit. The hijack folds away. We're headed heads up to the turn, and the dealer puts out the 7 of diamonds. Doesn't change anything. It's not a heart. The action's on my opponent. He stacks out, drops down, picks up, sets down, puts in $50. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very solid, very competent player in this card room. I would be on my heels unless I didn't have the nuts. He only has about $95 behind him. I could put them all in here, or I could just make the call and see if he wants to put his money in himself on the river. I think, as it's been explained to me many times, I should probably raise him all in, but I do just decide to make the call. We're headed heads up to the turn. $180 in the pot, and the dealer puts out the 5 of hearts, not the card I wanted to see. There's 3 hearts on the board. Now 2 in his hand would give him the flush. Actions on him. He once again sprinkles the chips onto the felt, cuts him out, puts him in the pot. Another $50 bet. He seems like maybe he's nervous about the heart too. It gives me confidence that I have the best hand. He probably would have shipped it if he had made the flush. He's bouncing those last few chips around. I see him. I want him. If he has a flush, so be it. But I need to get value when I can. I put $95 in. He calls instantly. I brace for impact. I flip over my straight, and he flips over king, queen, offsuit. He flopped 2 pair. It's just no way to put it other than a bad beat. If the hands had been reversed, he would have taken all my money. But this time, the poker gods have said, we are going to smile upon Cato. We are going to give him a plentiful bounty, and it only gets better. We're back to the fold monologue. We toss away a bunch of hands that just aren't doing it for us. Nothing nice, nothing good, until we look down at pocket jacks. This could be a special one, folks. This could be a fantastic hand. $709 on my stack. I'm in the middle position. The under the gun has limped. I've bumped it up to 13. The big blind decides he's going to make the call. The under the gun player also comes along. We're headed 3 ways to the flop, $40 in the pot. The dealer puts out 8, 4, king. I don't like the king on the board, but I'm okay with the 8 and the 4. The big blind and under the gun player decide they both want to check. I'm going to check as well. We're sending this one to the turn. Still 3 ways, and the turn's the 8 of hearts. This time the big blind says he wants to put some money in the pot, see where we're at. He puts $12 in. The under the gun player tosses his cards into the muck. He gets out of the way. I might be slightly scared of the king, but I'm not scared of the king for $12, so I throw in the call. We're headed to the river, heads up, 64 in the pot. The dealer puts out the ace of spades. This is not the card I want to see, but when my opponent bets $10, I decided I'm going to turn this into a bluff. I'm going to turn this into a kind of a weird bluff. The ace on the river is not a bad card to bluff on. The only issue is that I size up way too small. I make it $45. I put it in the pot. The opponent doesn't take long. He grabs some chips. He looks a little frustrated, like he got rivered. And that's what I was hoping. I could probably have applied more pressure and got him off of this one, but he is going to make the call reluctantly. I flip over my jacks, and he's good. He flips over king 4 offsuit for the big blind special. He had 2 pair, didn't charge me much for it. The ace on the river scared him. I have $637 in my stack. I'm folding away a few more junk hands. This session's actually required quite a bit of effort for only having 600 and some odd dollars in my stack. The next hand I look down at is ace queen of hearts. I'm in a middle position. The under the gun player's limped. I've bumped it up to $15. We have a button call, and then the big blind who I just tangled with the king 4 decides he's going to go with a min raise to $30. I have no idea what that means. Typically, it means pocket aces. That's not what I like to see because I have an ace in my hand. But of course, for $15 more, I'm going to come along. I make the call. The button makes the call. We're headed 3 ways to the flop, $94 in the pot, and the dealer puts out 5 ace ace. What a powerful flop for me. I know my opponent doesn't have pocket aces now, and he ships it all in. $94 in the pot, and he puts $460 in the pot. It takes me off my feet. It takes the wind out of my sails. I don't know what the hell this means. If he doesn't have aces, he probably doesn't have kings. Why would he be shoving with kings? Does he really have ace king? Is he shoving with pocket 5s? Ace 5, hoping that someone else has an ace? Would he min raise with ace 5 or pocket 5s? I really don't think so. I don't think he would in 100 times out of 100. So what am I doing here? What am I doing thinking about calling with ace queen? This is money being handed over to me. I decide this has gone on long enough. The table is going to be tilted at me if I take 2 minutes to make the call with ace queen, and so I shove my chips in the middle of the pot. I call, the other player folds away. We are going to a run out. I feel great, but I'm terrified at the same time. The turn is the 9 of hearts. I'm just praying he doesn't have ace king, and then the river comes out. It's the ace of diamonds. He obviously doesn't have ace king. What could he have?
Jackpot! Jackpot!
And there it is, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I feel like this is probably what looking down in the eyes of your firstborn child is like. And not to mention, I'm scooping a massive pot. There was over $1,000 in that pot. And the way the hand was played was just pure insanity, folks. I trade in 500 reds for greens. I have 1131 in my stack, but the game is on hold because we have to get paid out, baby. Look at all that money. The floor man gets to me. All those blacks are about to be in my pocket. He cuts out $2,000 in black. 400 in green, $2,439. I shipped the dealer $350, and the session's just getting started. I've split this one into 2 parts. The link should be on the screen any minute. Click it to watch part 2. And with a table full of jackpot winners, I'm telling you, the action is wild. Tune in. It's dropping soon. Thanks for watching. Kato out.